Good morning, boys and girls. Today is day 4 of your week 5 packet, and we are reading historical text, the Wright Brothers. Remember, first we're going to just read it all the way through to get just an understanding, the gist of what the text is mostly about, and then we'll go back and read it a second time to mark up the text. Orville and Wilbur Wright were brothers who were born 4 years apart. Wilbur was born in 1867 and Orville was born in 1871. They also had 2 other brothers and a sister. Their father was a bishop in their church, so they moved around a lot. Both parents encouraged them to read and to learn about the world. One day their father gave them a flying toy made of paper, cork, and bamboo. They played with it so much that they broke it, but it inspired them to promise each other that one day they would fly themselves. Through their childhood, the boys continued to be interested in mechanical things and flight. Orville decided to sell kites at school to make money, and Wilbur read everything he could find about how birds flew and machines worked. As the brothers became adults, they opened a bicycle shop. While they were young, their mother was the one in the family who fixed things, so both brothers learned how to be very good mechanics and could fix just about anything anyone asked them to fix. While working in the bicycle shop, the idea of designing an airplane was born. In the early 1900s, many people were interested in the possibility of flight, but most were focused on gliders. The Wright brothers experimented with the possibility of flight using a light but powerful engine. Taking their profits from the bicycle shop, they started testing their airplane invention at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which was located in a windy area in the country. On December 17, 1903, the Wright brothers made the first successful historic airplane flight, with Orville piloting the plane called the Flyer, and Wilbur running alongside the plane at the wingtip. This first flight was only 120 feet in length and lasted 12 seconds, at a speed of only 6.8 miles per hour. It was recorded in a famous photograph. Over the next few years, the Wright brothers continued to develop their aircraft and received their first patent in 1904. By 1908, Wilbur made over 100 flights, and in France, he set a record with the longest one at 2 hours and 19 minutes. Now that we've read the text, remember it's always important to look at all text features. And here I have a picture, and it looks like it's an actual photograph of the Wright brothers testing their airplane. So you can see what an airplane back then would look like. Remember that it said it wasn't very far off the ground, and it moved slowly. I think it said 6.8 miles. It also said that it didn't go very far. It said Orville was piloting the plane and Wilbur was running alongside of it. So this looks to me like this photograph is showing me that event. It just helps me to understand what the first airplane might have looked like. Go ahead and pause the video here and read it again on your own. And this time, what I want you to do is mark up the text. So you're going to number each paragraph, double star important facts, circle keywords or details you want to remember, put an X over things you don't understand, put a question mark over things you find confusing or have questions about. Underline unfamiliar words. Put an exclamation mark over things you find interesting. And draw an arrow next to parts you made connections to. Okay, so I've gone ahead and marked up my text. Remember, yours won't look like mine. Some parts might be similar, but this is specific to you. What you think is interesting, words that maybe you don't know, things that you made connections to. So I'll go ahead and just start from the top. I made a connection to this part where it says both parents encouraged them to read and to learn about the world, because that's what my parents did as I grew up. I saw two words you might not know, cork and bamboo. In this case, this article really isn't about the cork and the bamboo. It's just the materials that this flying toy were made of. And the important part is that the flying toy that kind of inspired them. So it's okay if you don't know exactly what this is, but you should know that it's the materials that the toy was made from. One thing I wanted to remember is this part where it says, Orville decided to sell kites at school to make money, and Wilbur read everything he could find about how birds flew and machines worked. I thought that was very interesting, and I marked it because, sometimes when we work with partners, it's important for us to remember that we don't have to be good at the same thing to make a good team. Orville, he sold things to make money, and Wilbur read all about how things fly and machines work. So they each took their strength and put it together to make a good team. So I just thought that was important to remember and very interesting. Another thing I thought was important to remember is it said, so both brothers learned to be very good mechanics. I wasn't sure if you knew what that word meant, but if we look at the context clue, while they were young, their mother was the one in the family who fixed things. So both brothers learned to be very good mechanics. That's a cause and effect. What happened? They were good mechanics. Why? Because their mother used to fix things all the time, so they learned how to do it. It says, and could fix just about anything anyone asked them to fix. So I see that word in there 3 times. Fix, fix, fix. So a mechanic must be somebody who can fix things. And then in a couple other important details, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers made the first successful historic airplane flight. I thought that was important. And this one down here, by 1908, Wilbur made over 100 flights in France. He set a record with his longest one at 2 hours and 19 minutes. I thought that was pretty important. And I thought it was interesting because now airplanes can fly for hours, right? A long time. But at that time, 2 hours and 19 minutes was historic. So I just thought those were pretty interesting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the questions and go through them. And so we will need to read our article again to find each one. We have 4 questions today. So let's start with question 1. It says, what was the Wright brothers' inspiration for flying? Inspiration. What do you think inspiration might mean? If you were inspired by a movie or a commercial, an ad, music, art, when you read or see something that makes you want to do it, that makes you want to participate or to help or to find a way, okay? You want to act in some way. So when it says, what was the Wright brothers' inspiration for flying, it means what happened that made them want to fly. So I'm going to have you pause the video here, find the paragraph where it talks about what happened that made them want to learn to fly or made them want to fly. In paragraph 1, it says, one day their father gave them a flying toy made of paper, cork, and bamboo. They played with it so much that they broke it, but it inspired them to promise each other that one day they would fly themselves. So question 1 says, what was the Wright brothers' inspiration for flying? Well, it was this toy that their father gave them. Point to the evidence from the text. We just need to say that their father gave them a toy. And that's what inspired them. But it's important to put this in your own words, and you don't need to copy the words, the sentences exactly from the text. So start with the what. The what was a toy that their father gave them. Their father gave them a flying toy. And then remember, it said they played with it so much they broke it, but that's what inspired them. So I'm going to take that period off. The Wright brothers' father gave them a flying toy. Notice that I still had the same idea. I just tried to put it as much as I could in my own words. Let me make this bigger for you. What was the Wright brothers' inspiration for flying? Point to the evidence from the text. The Wright brothers' father gave them a flying toy that they played with so much they broke it. This toy inspired them to promise each other they would fly one day. Question 2. What activities were the brothers involved in during their childhood that helped to prepare them to invent the airplane? So a couple keywords. We're looking at what they did in their childhood, not when they got older. And that helped prepare them. So prepare them means to get them ready to invent the airplane. What is your evidence? Pause the video here and look. What did they do in their childhood that helped them to be able to create this airplane? Maybe a skill. What did they do? Pause the video here, and when you think you have it and you've written your answer, go ahead and push play. I found it in paragraph 2. It's red. This right here is a spelling mistake. It should say throughout. So I'm going to write that R in for them right there. Throughout their childhood. There's our key word. Do you see that word, childhood? The boys continued to be interested in mechanical things and flight. Orville decided to sell kites at school to make money, and Wilbur read everything he could find about how birds flew and machines worked. So this part that I had already circled when I marked up my text, that's your answer right there. One of them decided to sell kites and make some money, and the other one decided to read about how birds flew and machines worked. So you also could have said while they were young, right? Young is childhood, right? While they were young, their mother was the one who fixed things. So both brothers learned to be very good mechanics. So that's important too. They were good mechanics, and that's how they were also able to invent an airplane. Because it says they could fix just about anything anyone asked them to fix. So let's go ahead and write that there. We're going to be using this evidence, but we're going to try to put it in our own words. So instead of saying during childhood, we could say as children. Okay, so what did they do? As children, the Wright brothers learned to be very good mechanics from their mother. What else did they do? Orville sold kites to make money, while Wilbur read about birds and machines. These activities prepared, we're going to use a question to write the answer. These activities prepared or helped prepare the brothers to invent airplanes. Let's look at question 3. Which parent was the family mechanic? Make sure to list your proof from the text. Go ahead and pause here. Find the proof and write your answer, and when you're finished, push play. We see that it was in paragraph 2 where we were just talking about their mother was the one in the family who fixed things. So when it says which parent was the family mechanic, make sure to list your proof in the text. We can simply write in paragraph 2, the author writes, put quotation marks, ... because there's part of the sentence that we're not going to write. Their mother was the one in the family who fixed things. And then ... because there's more after it, quotation marks. Okay, and because I put parentheses around there, I had to make sure that I was writing it exactly the way the author wrote it. Which parent was the family mechanic? Make sure to list your proof from the text. In paragraph 2, the author writes, their mother was the one in the family who fixed things. So we can finish that. Which tells me the mother was the family mechanic. There we go. That's a better answer. Number 4, make an inference.
This video is all about making inferences. By the end of this video, you will be able to define the word inference, define textual evidence, read closely in a text to make inferences, and analyze an author's words to determine multiple pieces of textual evidence that support your inferences. So, you might be asking, what is an inference? The fact is, you make inferences every single day, usually without even realizing it. For example, if you sit down next to your best friend at lunch and she moves to another table, you might infer that she is angry at you, or that you smell funny. Or, if you get home from school and your dog jumps up and starts licking your face at the door, you can infer that he is happy to see you. Basically, an inference is an educated guess based on the evidence that is right in front of us, combined with our past experiences. Inferences are definitely required in everyday life, but they are also required when we are reading, watching movies, and even listening to music. In your notes, list 3 inferences that you can make from this picture. Good job! Good readers are constantly making inferences as they read literature or informational texts. This is because writers don't always tell us everything explicitly. They want us to think a little bit about what we are reading. For example, read the following paragraph with me as I read it aloud. Katie was excited about tonight. Happily, she put on her big red shoes and bright yellow outfit. Her mom helped Katie paint her face with a big red circle on each cheek. Just before Katie ran out the door to meet her friends, she attached her large squeaky nose and placed a bright blue pointy hat on top of her head. She grabbed an empty bag and went out into the night. Notice that this paragraph never tells us explicitly that Katie is going out trick-or-treating for Halloween, but we immediately make that inference because of the details that the author has provided. The author tells us that Katie's mom is helping her to paint her face white with big red circles. We know from personal experience, like seeing normal people in the real world, that this is not ordinary makeup. So we know that it must be a special occasion. But she's running out the door to meet her friends, so she doesn't seem to be in a play, because we know from experience that plays are usually performed indoors. But it's that last sentence that really helps us to make the inference. Katie grabbed an empty bag and went out into the night. Because most people have been trick-or-treating, or at least seen others do it on TV or in movies. We know from our experiences that this means it's Halloween. These details that lead us to that conclusion are what we call textual evidence. Textual evidence is specific information from a text that we use to support our inferences. Now that you understand how to make inferences and use textual evidence to support them,
how was a glider different from the first airplane? Find reasons from the text using your inference skills. Why do you think the Wright brothers chose a windy place to do their test flights? Remember, when you make an inference, you're taking your own schema, what you already know, and you are taking clues from the text, and then you're making a decision about it. So we are making an inference about how was a glider different from the first airplane, and we need to find reasons. Go ahead and see if you can find some clues, and then maybe in the margin write down your schema that you put with it to help you figure this out, and write your answer. And when you're finished, push play and we'll check it together. I went back to my article and I found my clues in paragraph 3. It talks about how many people were interested in the possibility of flight, but most were focused on gliders. This word "but" kind of tells me that there's going to be a difference. The Wright brothers experimented with the possibility of flight using a light but powerful engine. That makes me think that they're different because the experiments the Wright brothers are doing is using an engine, and what other people are doing are not using an engine. And I have seen a glider before. You know, you can get those gliders from like the dollar store. And so I'm using my schema right now. When I get those gliders from the dollar store, it's like sort of like a paper airplane where you just fly it through the air. There's no engine or anything that's making any parts move. Whereas an engine, that would be giving it more power, right? And there would be moving parts. So, how was a glider different from the first airplane? I would say that a glider would be more like the kites that they used to make, and an airplane has an actual engine in it. It doesn't just glide through the air, it pushes through the air. Now remember that inference is a guess, but it's a guess you're making with clues from the text in your own schema. So it's okay sometimes if your inference is wrong, as long as you used evidence to support it. So the evidence I used is that I know that they used to sell kites, and I know kites float through the air. And it says a lot of people were focused on gliders, but the Wright brothers experimented with an engine. So that's what makes me think a glider does not have an engine. That's where my evidence comes in. And I said an airplane does have an engine because I know that it said the Wright brothers experimented with the possibility of flight using a light but powerful engine. And down here it says they started testing their airplane. So I see that word airplane. That's my evidence of why I think an airplane has an engine. That's it for today, boys and girls. And I will see you tomorrow, Friday, for the last day. Bye-bye.